An intellectual carrot, the mind boggles.
You see? You see? Your stupid minds. Stupid! Stupid!
Earth has had Santa Claus long enough. We will bring him to Mars.
I've been afraid a lot of times in my life, but I didn't know the real meaning of fear until I had kissed Becky.
One thing will be clear. It's not for man to interfere in the ways of God.
It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Earth vs. Soup, episode 163. I'm Aaron Pollier.
I'm Darlene.
We watched a movie that we found on Amazon Prime today that I chose solely because the title was ridiculous and the movie art was ridiculous. And therefore I thought, okay, we got to watch it. And then I saw who was in it. It's like, okay, we need to watch this. And it has many names, but the name at least that I saw it under that I was like, okay, is The Torture Chamber of Dr. Sadism.
Which is the translation from Germany.
It's a German film, yeah.
It's a German film. The English version is The Blood Demon, unless you are in Rhode Island or one of those things that the newspaper in the time could not put blood.
And then what was it called, Darlene?
Then it was called Crimson Demon.
So it has many names. But it's also basically a retelling of The Pit and the Pendulum from Edgar Allan Poe. And the reason, the person that I saw that was in it, that I was like, okay, we really do have to watch this, it's Christopher Lee, who, again, is one of the greats. But he is barely in this movie.
He's the Count Regula.
Regula or Regulon. That's what's...
Regula.
I always have Regulon written down in my notes for whatever reason. The other two main actors in this, are actually fairly well known, I would say. Lex Barker plays a guy named Roger Mont-Elise, who he played Tarzan in a lot of the Tarzan movies from the 1950s. Okay? And then Karen Dorr is Baroness Lillian von Brabant. And you might know her as the lady from You Only Live Twice. What was her name in You Only Live?
Is she the Bond girl or
Yeah, she's the Bond girl in it, and her name in it is Helga Brandt. She's the redhead. And You Only Live Twice. And she's honestly a good actress. So, have you ever seen this movie before?
No, I have
not.
No,
I've never seen this movie before. Because there are things in this that I think we'll talk about when we get to it that truly do work and are very memorable, but I'm surprised that this isn't played more, because it's not like, okay, the title makes it seem like it is an insane German film, right? But honestly, it's...
So does the poster.
Yes.
The poster is actually a painting of one of the 12 maidens before we even start the movie gets killed.
Yes.
By Count Regula. And she's one of the 12 that's in his torture chambers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it looks it would be a sex
torture type thing, and it's not. Yeah, it's not.
The name does it too.
I said to you when we first started watching this, if it turns out to be some sort of weird European softcore, whatever, obviously that does not fit into Earth versus Soup. It did not turn out to be that way. In fact, everything was fairly tame in it. That's
you looked up and you said no nudity. You said violence,
violence and gore. And honestly, what gore is there in it?
Oh, there is. The vultures eating the beef that's down, slabs of beef down on the ground. Because that was actually bones, but I would have said that was a
fake.
Pig, or it wasn't fake.
Yeah, it was. When they stepped on it, it looked like rubber to me.
Okay, but when the birds were picking at it, it didn't look like it was fake.
So anyway, I said if it turns out to be a softcore thing, we're not gonna review it. We'll watch it and then just be done with it. But we won't review it for Earth versus Soup, because I do think there is a dividing line between, let me restart. Let me say that there are European films that do firmly fit into that supernatural horror that does fit into Earth versus Soup very clearly, but verges into that kind of progressive, weird, softcore, we don't mind having nudity on screen European style.
But not so.
But it's not sexy. Like it's not all about sex.
If it got 3 points of gratuitous nudity, I think it needs to be taken out.
Because I think there's artistic nudity, right? Like we see that in some of the early 1930s films that we've watched, where they're not really nude. Women or men aren't really nude, but you can basically see everything. Again, it's not a sexual thing. It's an artistic thing. It's not meant to titillate. It's meant to showcase an idea of something.
And that's what we mean by
gratuitous. When it's gratuitous, it's just there to titillate. And thankfully, there was no nudity in this, even though one of the movie posters suggests there's going to be flesh on screen, and there really isn't.
So that's probably the downside of why people don't watch it.
Because it makes you think, oh, it's a German film from the late 60s. It has this weird title, The Torture Chamber of Dr. Sadism. It has this movie poster that really suggests some bondage type nudity happening. No, that is not the case. This movie is tame. I would say that it never really goes beyond maybe like the Dracula, the early Universal films, in like what it's really showing. Darlene's nodding on the audio podcast.
Yeah. I was just thinking of some other things too.
All right, so we have never seen this movie. I am glad we did watch it, but we'll get into the pluses and minuses after we're done with the plot.
And the date is a little bit of a confusion too. It was released in West Germany in 1967, yet in America in 1969.
Yeah. So let's start in on the plot. And I think that while I actually have a lot of notes for this plot, because a lot of things are happening, I'm not sure if it's a plot that is super deep. It just seems like there's a lot of little intricate details that are normally passed over in other movies. Does that make sense with what I'm saying?
And some of it, it's the pit and the pendulum. It's how do you make a poem, unless it's Lost in Paradise, a movie.
Right, so I don't know what you're trying to say.
It's a short thing, so it's not very long of, and how do you make...
I think they did a fine job with this. That's the thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with this film at all. So let's get into the plot.
It starts in the 18th century.
It starts in a time unknown, I should say, because they never really say dates. We can make assumptions based on people's dress.
That's what I'm doing, because her dress in the next one is like in the...
her dress in the second part of the movie.
The second part of the movie is like 1850s, 1860s. So, okay. And then you look also at the very beginning, the costumes there put it as the 1790s.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So we start in a dungeon of a castle, and there's an executioner and a magistrate that are walking down a tunnel, and there's a priest with them.
And a mask.
Yeah, they're holding a mask. So a cell is open, and inside we see Christopher Lee, who is playing Count Regula in this. And I'm like, man, he is starting off. It is Christopher Lee. This is going to be good because the guy has presence. I would like to read something about Christopher Lee talking about this movie, like why he was in it so little, what his thoughts were on taking this role, because it was a very, I would say, minor role. Anyway, he has murdered supposedly 12 people, And the magistrate says that the punishment is to be drawn and quartered. Okay. He's then fitted with an Iron Maiden mask, basically one of those masks with spikes on it, and he screams in pain. They lead him out. They strap him to the ground and then strap him to horses and draw and quarter him. Okay. There's a little bit of weirdness in this scene because I think most of the scene is actually pretty good. But why do you put executioner hoods on horses?
Well, I don't know that. I would have put at least blinders on them. So the blinders are so they don't get distracted
with all the people around. So yeah, that's a weird scene. So it turns out this has all happened 35 years prior to the rest of the movie. Okay, so this is kind of like a flashback. And we hear an entertainer in a town square telling this story about Count Regula and being drawn and quartered and his horrible crimes. Now, I'm going to also, again, backtrack here because I'm going to spoil a little bit of the movie later on. But what I don't understand is how did they convict this guy for the murder of 12 women when they never even found the bodies? Because all the bodies are still in his lab.
Yes, they are.
How did he get convicted?
It has to do probably the only thing I could think of as an afterlook is that his servant Anatole.
Okay. Anatole
gets his body and the 12.
But the girls' bodies are just kind of laying
still
around
in their
and
position.
They've been preserved in the basement. That's kind of the point, like that they're
green stuff.
Yeah, that they're always hanging around this green immortality goo, and that's why the bodies are preserved. I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping around to the plot, but there's things that really don't make sense in this movie. It's one of the drawbacks of it. There's things that are big disconnects. Anyway, a well-to-do man appears in a carriage, and he overhears part of the story. And this is Lex Barker playing Roger Mont Elise. We learn that he does not know about his past other than he is some sort of noble. Not a royal, a noble.
He has a seal.
He has a seal, and he's told it is like the seal of Saint Elizabeth.
No, it has to deal with his name.
Yes, that's why it's Elise. It's like that Saint Elizabeth is on this seal.
On a mountain.
Yes. Now, again, this is another big disconnect. If he has been told that he is a noble and this is his noble's crest or something like that. And he was
given money to take care of, so he was able to become a lawyer.
Yes, and he's a lawyer. Why does he not know what this really is? He could just like literally ask around, go, "Hey, what is this seal?
I don't know.
What's my real family?" All I know is that supposedly my family is called Saint, Mont Elise, and
we come into a town that nobody will answer his questions either.
Well, that's the next scene, Darlene.
Yes, but he gets a letter.
He gets a letter from this storyteller that basically says, "Hey, come to this castle."
And he notes that the seal on this letter is the same as his seal that he has.
Yes, so he's like, "Wow, that's weird. Maybe somebody from my long lost family is trying to contact me."
And you also have a scene where he tells his a coworker of the law firm that he works with that he's going to be going.
Yes,
because something came up.
So the entertainer goes to a new city, and he delivers another letter to a beautiful woman whose mother was involved with the Count 35 years prior. And this is Karen Dorr playing Baroness Lillian von Brabant. Okay.
She's a singer or actor. She's a singer, piano player and singer.
No, she plays piano like as a pastime because she's a baroness.
No, but she said something about having to perform because she was left with no money.
Okay, but she has like a servant.
She has a servant, Babette.
Yeah, so she doesn't, it's not like she doesn't have money. She has fine clothes. She had her own carriage for this. She has a servant. Like she does have money. maybe she performs for like extra money or whatever because she isn't like super wealthy, but I don't know. She does come across as being not poor.
And she knows that her mother is, and she got a cross from her mom too.
Yeah.
But there's very little she knows because her mom wouldn't talk about those days.
So Roger comes into town in his carriage and he starts asking for directions in this town where the Baroness is. And again, like many of these movies, no one wants to give this guy directions. And it obviously raises his freaking ire. He's like, okay, something weird is going on. No one wants to talk to me about it. And there's also this religious procession that comes through town that has like monks carrying a cross and ringing a bell and chanting. And this little girl's like, oh yes, it's
Good Friday.
Good Friday is coming up. It's the
Yes.
next day. But she says that this is specifically a tradition to drive out the evil that lives in a nearby valley. And that's the valley that everyone knows, like Roger and the Baroness, know where this castle is that they have to go to. They know the castle they have to go to is in this valley, that Count Regulon lived in this castle. No one wants to tell him where it is, but it's in this valley. It's clearly nearby. Why can't you just look and find a castle?
And why aren't people, if you're so scared of somebody going to some place, why don't you tell them? In all these movies, this irritates the hell out of me.
Tell them why it's bad to go out there. Oh, people have like disappeared, or that was where Count Regulon lived 35 years ago, and I had an aunt that disappeared and was one of the murdered girls or whatever, blah blah. Like, you can totally go into exposition with it. There's entirely a good story reason here for like a little girl who he's talking to in this scene to expand upon what happened 35 years ago that we only know a little bit about. Now, obviously, I am a proponent of show, not tell, but something, a tiny little bit, is more than nothing here. Like, tell something and then go into showing.
But then you end up with a drunk father.
Again, this next scene. You keep jumping ahead scenes here.
Oh, is when her coach goes by, does he already have the father with him?
Yes.
Okay.
So he ends up picking up the father, who is he comes across as either, I think he comes across as a Catholic priest, right?
Yes.
He's not a Lutheran priest.
No, because he's wearing a whole frock.
Yeah. See, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what
Eastern
the styles
Orthodox
are.
too.
No, I don't think he's Eastern Orthodox. He does not come across as Eastern Orthodox. I can say that because a lot of the styles of dress for holy men haven't really changed that much with Eastern Orthodox, where it has sort of changed with some of the Christian denominations in the West. Anyway, I am not a religious expert.
He's got the collar. He's got the black robe that goes all the way down to the feet.
And they call him Father.
And they call him Father.
All right, so I don't know. Take that how you will. He's Christian of some sort. And they both leave the town because it turns out that this priest is also going out in the direction that this castle supposedly is to like
baptize
somebody at like this, what do they call it? Like a it's not like an inn, it's a way station or like a way.
I don't know. I didn't remember. I didn't have any note. Couldn't get where they
I forget
were
what the term is. Unfortunately, it's not coming out of my head.
Coach house?
It might be a coach house, something like that. But he has to go and do a baptism. So he's going to go out there. And this is where Roger and the Baroness meet because highwaymen jump the Baroness's coach. Okay? They get away. The Baroness and her maid, Babette, are able to escape. They steal the coach. Roger kind of fights one of them off, but, anyway.
They steal the coach man.
Yes. And at this point, Roger...
And the horses, but leave the carriage.
Yeah, Roger's like, hey, look, don't worry. Just come with us. We got it. You can accompany us. We'll keep you safe. at least with a couple men, yeah, sure, there's one priest, maybe the highwayman won't jump you. I mean, now since you had like two women just sitting there, and I don't know what the coachman ever even tried to do. Maybe he didn't even try to fight back. I don't know. But the coachman that Roger has is he is supposed to be a coward, but he really isn't. He's actually one of the most rational people in the movie. But regardless, this is where we learn all about the background of Roger, that he doesn't really know his past. He was raised as an orphan, but with a whole bunch of money that was given to the people that raised him. They arrive at this way house or wherever that the priest was supposed to be going to, and they find it burnt out.
It's not burnt out, it's burning.
Well, it's still smoking, and there's like a guy that's just hanging out in there. Do you remember like what the point of that is? I mean, because
I thought that was the Count.
No, it's not the Count. It's Regula's servant.
Oh, it was Anatole.
It's him, but I don't get what the hell's going on here. Why is he there? Why is this way station or whatever coach house burnt down? I don't know.
And why were the highwaymen?
The highwaymen weren't there.
No, but what was the purpose of the highwaymen?
The highwaymen, that was a completely that makes sense in the end of the film.
Because
that makes sense with the priest. Totally makes sense. It's just that he didn't expect to have like Roger actually stand up and fight, which was a big deal. Anyway, they decide that they're going to leave this burnt out coach house, and the ruins collapse behind them. And the coachman just stops the coach and says, this is like a cursed trip. I'm not going to go on. And the priest pulls a gun on this coachman and says, you're going to go on if we say you should, because we paid you. And then people are like looking at everybody here is just like completely shocked. This priest pulls a gun and threatens them. And this is enough clue that the priest isn't who he says he is.
Besides the half a dozen bottles of beer under,
big deal.
There was a bottle of wine under his.
I don't mind. Anyway, he basically says, "Hey, all priests carry guns when they've been sent to the godforsaken places such as this, like the middle of Austria-Hungary or wherever the hell they are."
Well, they're coming into they call it the deserted forest.
Yeah, something like that. So they go into this forest that's blanketed in fog, and the coachman starts hallucinating. Like LSD type visions where the trees are full of pieces of bodies.
And ravens.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And he stops it when he sees 3 crows.
And
that's where I thought that's where it says you shouldn't see 3 crows on Good Friday.
Yes, because it's now like later that night. It's like after midnight or whatever. But anyway, no one else is seeing any of these bodies. He's losing his mind.
And there's fog.
Yeah, and he basically freaks out again after being told to just go on. He freaks out, and the horses start like running really fast. They're able to get the horses to stop, and it turns out he had a heart attack and died out of fear. The coachman.
Was it?
Yeah.
Or because wasn't he back at the castle later on?
Nope.
Okay.
Coachman dies. He has a heart attack, just dies. And now everyone actually does see bodies hanging from trees.
Oh, no, I remember. That's that one-legged guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one-legged entertainer.
The entertainer ends up at the castle.
Yeah. So at this point, the carriage is taken by highwaymen as the priest and Roger are looking at the bodies. So like Babette and the Baroness are captured by the highwaymen. Now,
no, it's not the highwaymen.
That's what they say, that highwaymen just took.
It is an
Anatole. Yes, it is Anatole, but they say it's highwaymen.
They thought it was the highwaymen.
That's what I'm trying to say.
They were taking down a hanged man.
Yeah, it was an old body. It was like a skeleton. Yeah, and this is another thing that's weird. It's why would skeletons, like, they're fully skeletonized, there's no tissue at all there, they would have just fallen apart. It's not like they would be hanging from the trees. So are these like fake bodies, like fake skeletons that are all hooked together that Anatole is trying to hang in the trees to make people freak out? This is where the movie it becomes unclear, because like when the coachman is looking into the trees and seeing like the body pieces, we see things like that later on in the castle that everyone is seeing. So were those real?
I don't know. And one of the problems I have with a lot of these old movies is they have skeletons around,
Yeah.
and and you know that, I mean, in your back of your mind you go, I got to do this is disbelief of my thing, because my mind, because of this is wouldn't the skeletons would be a pile of bones.
Sure. And there are times in this movie where they are just piles of bones.
Yeah, but you have a lot of the knights, the
knights
in armor,
Yeah.
that has got a skeleton in it.
So the two men stumble on a cemetery with that they end up going into like a tomb that has a secret door that leads into the castle. Again, I don't really understand why they chose to go into the cemetery, into a crypt, to find the secret door that went into the castle.
I don't know either.
Like, it all seems very contrived.
That's when I looked up and was like, where am I?
What the hell's going on?
And why does this door have spikes on the
So I'm going to try to sum up the rest of the film. And this is like a full page of notes, because there's a lot of dialogue and weird things that start happening. But basically, this is the castle of Count Regula. And Count Regula starts, well, the Count's servant, Anatole, starts basically screwing with everybody's minds, like drugging them, threatening them with acid. It's really weird, but we learned that the priest is actually a highwayman that has been like in disguise as a priest, because he was going to rob everyone involved here at some point. And he has a crucifix because of his costume, and no one wants a crucifix around, because suddenly
he stole her crucifix.
Yes. Okay, because he stole the Baroness's crucifix to try to sell later on, because I guess it's a jeweled crucifix or whatever. And because, as we learn, Count Regulon's body has been like pieced together by his servant, and is resurrected on this Good Friday with like this concentrated blood of life, which is green. God, this movie gets weird. He can't stand crucifixes.
Neither could Anatole, because he's drank the green blood
to like preserve his life. Yeah, like Anatole gets shot, and we see like a gunshot through him, and his skin just heals immediately.
But we find out later that he was hung,
and drinking,
as he was trying to get back.
Yes, so he drank the green stuff before he was hung, and that protected him from dying. He just like pretended to die and walked away later on.
And that's why he has this leather.
Yeah, because he has he has like a wound on his neck. At one point, the Baroness has no memory of anything. She just thinks she's like the daughter of Count Regula, but then it's clear that she just immediately starts remembering things. Like after about
that confused me too.
I don't understand. I don't understand.
How can you give a drug that would do?
So Count Regula is brought back to life. Okay. And we learned that this eternal life green blood goo was concentrated life from the blood of 12 virgins. And in
fear.
Yeah, that they were afraid when they died. And in order to perfect the potion blood life goo, it needs to have a 13th woman's blood in it, a virgin's blood in it. And that virgin must be the Baroness, because she's the daughter of this woman from the past, from when he was executed, that somehow was involved in all of it.
Who knows if she's a virgin?
Yeah, how do you know? Like, Have you had the servant following around every night, like spying on her to make sure she's not that she hasn't had sex? That's nuts. That's nuts. Why can't you just okay? Oh my lord. Hold on. We're gonna monster squad this. The little sister is a virgin.
Yes.
You don't have to be an adult and a virgin to have your blood. Like, he could have just found like random kids, scared them.
It's worse.
It's worse. But I'm saying, like, why is he having to like do certain things? Maybe there are other rules. Anyway, it's weird ass magic, and it turns out like crucifixes can just make it explode because everything are vampires now, like including chemistry sets.
The chemistry set
just explodes when a crucifix
when
hits
they
it.
throw the crucifix at it
like a grenade. It's the holy hand grenade. But during all this, Roger gets put into a pit with this. It's the pit and the pendulum, and he has to like escape. And it turns out like it turns out that he's able to like pry a rock from the ground, throw it at the pendulum, so it like wobbles, and he's able to cut his bonds with it and escape before it like grinds into the ground. Mind you, during this time, the Count is very interested in watching him die, and he just turns away at the point where Roger would be killed.
He also sent the father into a pit that had the guy that was telling the stories.
Yes,
so
the one-legged entertainer.
It tells you everything here is you're going to end up dead.
Well, no, everything is contrived because in the end, the fake priest, the fake priest is in a chamber with the dead one-legged entertainer that's right above the pit that has Roger in it. Because remember, he somehow just throws down a rope ladder.
No, he climbed up. Remember the putting fire to the hay? And he watched the smoke come up, and he had to climb up.
He had to climb up, and then he found a place that had a rope ladder to climb down into the pit to save him, even though he had no real reason to save him.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's not really explained. Anyway, there's the big fight at the end. The crucifix explodes like a hand grenade. When the time runs out, because now everything was on like a ticking clock, that the potion had to be perfected at this moment, otherwise everything would fall apart. The Count like just vaporizes. Anatole vaporizes, and the bodies of the dead women suddenly revert to like being skeletons rather than like just recently deceased women.
The evil left is what that's supposed to be.
What was the evil with the women though? Like, why
finally got rest?
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know.
Who knows? So at the end, it's Babette and the priest end up just kind of showing up with the carriage that they had, and they're all laughing, and they all leave happily ever after. The end.
Yeah, I don't understand how they got out of the castle first as it was falling down.
No. This movie has a lot of problems.
There was a tunnel with vultures in it. There was a tunnel of skeletons in the wall.
That was kind of cool. Okay, so there's lots of problems with the plot, like, of this movie. That's fair, but let's start with what worked, because I do truly believe a lot of this movie worked.
I like the sets, but I really have got to say that somebody needed to D&D this and make a dungeon actually
make a little bit of sense.
Make a little sense.
Yeah, no, the sets in this, the set design, are fantastic. And I'm going to say, like, there's paintings inside the castle on the walls that are very, like, Hieronymus Bach. But, you know, the weird, like, hellscape type. I really liked those. I thought it was an interesting design choice for the movie. I thought it was very well done. The use of vultures in this was actually pretty cool. Like, you don't really see vultures in movies very often being used to show, and
those weren't the ugly ones either.
No, they were. I mean, they're carrion birds for sure, but it's kind of neat seeing that. Like, you could tell they have like chain, like let's say they're ropes on their legs, so they're not. Well,
one of them
around.
Had the chain that was in the.
Yeah, because they don't want them flying around and pecking at people, obviously. But it's clear that there were animal handlers on set. Okay.
They were from a zoo.
Yeah, most likely.
But that's
most
where
likely.
I said that even if it was fake, they had thrown down some meat or something to those things, because two of them were
pulling at it.
Pulling at.
It's just when the actors walked over that,
They,
it looked fake. It was a fake piece of meat. Anyway, I
so
think the
I
sets
assumed
worked.
it was.
I think the acting worked in this. I think while the Christopher Lee is technically the A-list in this, Christopher Lee is underused, and I'm not talking about Christopher Lee in this, because I think Christopher Lee is so underused he doesn't count as being really in it.
Could it be just a name like you?
Oh, you're drawn to it because Christopher Lee's in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I'm talking about Lex Barker and Karen Dorr. I think they really did a good job. And one of my tests for like a leading couple is that they have some sort of chemistry, right? Some sort of chemistry. And while I don't think they have like amazing sparks coming off the screen chemistry, they do have some working relationship that made them work well on screen.
There seems to be more I can't speak today. Chemistry between the father and Babette, especially when you're in the he's snoring and she.
Oh well, they're like the comedy duo in my opinion. Like the father and Babette, are they are the comedy duo. They have a little bit of fun interaction between each other, but Lex Barker and Karen Dorr really do play off each other fairly well when they're together. And it's not very often that they are together because of circumstances in the movie, but it's there. So I'm saying that's one of those, it works. I really like the fact that maybe this comes back under my heading of sets, that all the castle stuff was really well shot. So maybe not. Let's just say cinematography. Like it's you can tell what's happening. It's not dark, even though you can tell that it's supposed to be dark. It's not dark. Everything's well lit. It's competently shot. Everything's in focus. You know what's going on.
And they actually used a town for this.
Yeah, in a real town that has like old clock towers and stuff that survived the war. Like great. So good on that. Good on the director of photography. Like,
and there's a lot of scenic views.
Mm-hmm.
On the top of the way, or is that the castle itself?
No,
they're actually using pillars of stone that is.
You showed it to me. It's in a park. Yeah,
it's in a park.
No, it's scenic. It's well shot. If you're in this area of Germany, I'm sure you would have actually recognized the places that they were showing.
And when they were in the forest, they were filming in a forest, even though they put other things.
It's not a weird set somewhere. Like, there's other things laying around, but it's a real forest. I'm trying to think, what else do you think might fall into the category of this works in this movie?
That's about it.
Okay, so what doesn't work?
The plot?
See, I don't. Here's my thoughts on the plot. There are large chunks of it that very clearly do not work.
Okay, maybe I should say the continuity.
The continuity of the film is so wacky. No, you're right. The plot falls into this does not work because everything is contrived. Everything is contrived.
Even though most of it's supposed to be contrived through Anatol.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a point where like you said, Roger should have known where he came from.
Sure.
By even especially since he's a lawyer, he had to have some investigation skills
into his background, or somebody should have looked into his background.
Or he should have.
My family is Mont Elise. This is Saint Elizabeth. There should have been somebody at some point in his life to go, no, that's not. That's the Virgin Mary on this seal. What are you talking about? You're like Mont,
and that seal goes to the Count.
Count Regula. And Count Regula is clearly known well enough in the area to be feared, even 35 years after his supposed death. You would think that somebody would see that seal and go, whoa, dude, what the hell? And why is he a descendant of Count Regula, where he didn't have sons? He was the son of the magistrate. Remember?
He was supposed to be son of the magistrate. Maybe he had that.
So maybe he wasn't an actual noble, and that it was just Regulin screwing with him from like being a baby. I don't know. See, a lot of this stuff just doesn't really make a lot of sense.
He should have been forewarned. And why do the people, all of these movies in a German town, seem to not have will not tell anyone anything? It's as bad as going to when we went to Moscow and trying to
find Yuri Gagarin statue, and everyone's like, oh, I don't know.
No, not my problem.
Oh, when I was trying to get money and the ATM ate my card. Yeah, that's
not my problem.
Not my problem. Oh, come on, man!
It felt
please.
like this, you know.
I spent a whole half day in Moscow trying to just get a couple $100 because I needed it for transportation. Anyway, at least there was no torch-wielding villagers. Yes. I will say that.
No, they already burned the place.
It's not a universal. It's not a universal film. Fair enough, but it's a German. You know, it's supposed to be in Germany, and there's like a crazy castle with an evil.
They already burned it down.
Who acts like a vampire? So yeah, the plot does not work. What else doesn't work?
The continuity
all of it is just messed up. But I'll say that like some of the special effects for like the bodies very clearly look like they're store mannequins. And bad plastic store mannequins. They didn't really even try to dress up in any other way because they have like modern mod-ish makeup on, like as some store mannequins did. And I'm like, oh, come on.
And that was the other thing I'd say is the costumes, they created confusion on what time it is.
Well, I don't know if that's a problem in this.
It could have been deliberate.
I think that could have been deliberate. Because I don't think the time frame really makes a big difference in this. Again, I'll go back to the Universal films. It's the undefined era when these Frankenstein events are happening or Dracula is happening, and it's sometime in the 1800s or early 1900s. And if it's not exact, that's not a big deal, right? That being said, the costumes aren't that bad. It's just that you felt there was like a combination of different eras, right?
Yeah, even when you looked at the cast that was in the village, it was like, that's from that time, that's from that time, and that's from that time.
But it's a real village, which is actually nice to see.
And that's why I was saying from her dress. Oh, and as her, I would have taken those freaking heels off, and that
there was like a frock, and she had like the huge amounts of petticoats.
Not the petticoats. It was the ring. The farthingale, though.
Okay.
I would have taken that sucker off.
All right.
Dropped it.
Sure. So a lot of so our summation is that there's parts of this movie that are truly good, but the overall plot really drags it down. They misuse Christopher Lee, I think.
Yeah, but that might have been a contract too.
He might have just had like a weekend in Germany, and he was like, I can do this job if it only takes 2 days.
And they padded out a lot of the time with the coach going around.
But even the parts of Christopher Lee in this movie, he does feel like he's dialing it in. Like
the amount of makeup they had to put on him to make him
maybe not dialing it in because that really suggests that he just did not care.
Well, you said, what did you say that he said about this?
I don't know. I would like to know more about it because I don't know. He seems bored in it, which doesn't suggest that he's just volunteering to do this as, hey, I have a couple days in Germany, I'll do this bit part in this German film. I don't know. Would you recommend it?
I don't think I will.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I would either. But it's a light not recommendation. It's not like I didn't enjoy parts of this film. It engaged me, right? We were engaged.
But I have better things that I could probably watch.
Yeah. I mean, the plot is total nonsense, and just because of that, it'd probably knock it down to like a 4 out of 10.
And they really needed to get a dungeon master into
because there is a good movie in this. That's the thing. There is a very good movie in this. You just needed to tighten up the plot and give a reason for why the characters are doing some of the things they're doing, or the decisions
and not just
that they're
walking
making.
out of this place.
Or, well, not just walking into random places to get exactly where the plot needs them to go. Like, it feels like the characters have no agency at all.
Yeah, that is exactly what I've been feeling. It's like, why do you even
What's
bother?
going on? Yeah, why bother? What's going on? Well, at first it makes sense because Roger Monteilus gets that letter and it's sealed with the seal that he has. It makes sense that he's curious about it, right?
She's been coaxed because of an inheritance.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Like the beginnings of it all make sense. It's just all the steps after that suddenly become like, well, this happens, and they keep going, and they find a secret entrance into a castle that they didn't know was there, but they just happen into it. And it's not like the priest is leading any of them there. The priest is just along for the ride because he's wanting to rob them later on. Right?
I don't know what it actually is.
So yeah, the lesson to learn from this is you really need to give your characters agency and reasons why they're doing things in it, because that's the biggest problem with this film.
And why would you make her, after you've kidnapped her, you've given her a drug that
makes her forget everything,
and then to remember, that didn't make sense.
Because there's a whole scene where she thinks she's the daughter of Count Regulin.
And she's talking about the paintings, how beautiful they were, and
yeah, like she's been drugged, but why is she remembering how to play the piano and then talking about these paintings? Like, she knows what she's talking about, and then all of a sudden she just kind of comes to as, oh my God, I've been drugged. I didn't mean any of that, and that just seems completely unnecessary.
It sounded like there was something else. It made it feel like that part was for something else, and then they decided to go differently.
Yeah, boy, that's just a weird scene. I mean, yeah, there are parts of this movie that are fantastic. Like I said, the sets. If you're just about like set building and set lighting, hey, great, watch this film.
Was great.
Yeah, watch this film. That's worth it.
Just don't put the long hauls of. Don't pad out your film with coach driving here, because that was a lot of the movie.
You know what I would say as well before we end? I would say this is a movie that you could have on mute during a party and people would be engaged with it because it does look good. The actors and actresses look good in it. There's always something kind of strange going on in this movie, but you totally don't need to hear the plot.
And you don't need the conversations or
the sound effects. None of that really truly impacts the film. Yeah, the conversations aren't really important. So yeah, well, otherwise we're just going to keep babbling. I hate not recommending this film because there are, like I said, I really enjoyed parts of it. We were both engaged. It's just that the plot was nonsense.
I walked out on a few times.
Yeah, but it wasn't like you walked out because you were bored. It was you walked out because, hey, I want to get something else to drink. What happened when you came back in? You're like, what happened? I'm like, okay, I didn't
say what. Because all of a sudden something else was on the screen.
Yeah, and you're like, whoa, what the hell happened? Yeah.
And really it turned out there was nothing. They went.
No, it's just that the movie does that. It just kind of jumps between ideas.
And this would be, this is one that I'd put on the backside if you were having
like a Halloween party.
A Halloween party or something.
It's not offensive. It's not like there's blood and gore everywhere.
Black and white, TV, you know.
It's not black and white though. It's in beautiful color. Yeah.
It's in color.
So we'll leave it there. I'm Aaron.
I'm Darlene. Good evening.
And keep watching the skies.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.